For hundreds, if not thousands of years, medicine has been innovating and changing and helping to heal the lives of people around us. This is no less true in the United States, where before colonialization, Indigenous Americans were using traditional medicinal practices to cure things such as sunburn, pain, indigestion, and more. It is no surprise that indigenous medicine has impacted Western allopathic medicine. Rarely see Western allopathic medicine actually acknowledge the contributions from indigenous practices. Here, I argue that Native Americans have contributed greatly to allopathic medicine. However, they have not gotten the credit they deserve because of systematic racism, colonialism, and other systems of oppression. These systems have led to a shortage of indigenous pharmaceutical researchers as well as physicians. Not only does this shortage hurt indigenous communities, but the lack of interest in Native American healing practices shown by allopathic medicine devalues the work that has been practiced by traditional healers in communities for thousands of years. So a bit of background. For indigenous people in Americas, healing is the pursuit of holistic health. This is diametrically opposed to the way that Americans view health now in an allopathic sense, where we are treating the symptom, not the whole person. However, for Indigenous people in Canada and in the Americas, it is a lifelong journey towards this word here, or the good life. It is the journey towards self-awareness, self-knowledge, spiritual attunement, and oneness with creation. When Indigenous people talk about traditional healing, they include a wide array of activities, including physical cures that include herbal remedies to the promotion of psychological and spiritual well-being through ceremony, counseling, and accumulated wisdom of elders. This makes healing a deeply spiritual experience. And most often when people think of medicine, they think of Western lab-based science and technology. However, there are many ways that someone can be healed, and not acknowledging the practices of other cultures stifles the amount of potential ways we can help patients and families. Here, we are going to discuss two examples of herbal remedies used by Native Americans and one example of a medical device used by Native Americans that is now utilized in allopathic medicine today. The first example is guaiacum, which is an evergreen tree that grows in tropical America. It has a heavy, oily timber and produces a lot of thick sap. Long before European contact, South American indigenous cultures used the resin from the tree as a type of blood cleanser that they would dissolve in a tonic. This would usually cause a diuretic effect that would cleanse the body of toxins. Europeans saw this method and decided that this sap could be used as a cure for syphilis, and this was utilized in the 16th century, so much so that there are paintings depicting the practice. This went on for some time, but where we know it in allopathic medicine today is from the European Isaac van Dien, who discovered that the resin from the guaiacum tree was able to separate blood, urine, and feces in samples. This is known today as the guaiac-based fecal occult blood test, or the GFOBT. This test is used for biochemical detection of macroscopically invisible blood in the stool. This test helps us find evidence of colorectal cancer and saves millions of lives. However, the practice of using this compound was originated by indigenous populations. Most of my research gives no credit. Another traditionally used compound in Native American medicine is found in the Pacific or Western yew, which is a slow-growing evergreen tree. Native Americans used the bark of this tree as a disinfectant, as a way to induce abortion, and as a medicine for healing skin cancer, according to Wang et al. In today's allopathic medicine, there is a drug, Taxol, which uses the chemical compound found in this tree as a treatment for skin cancer. This drug has not only been the best-selling chemotherapeutic drug in history with sales of over $1 billion in 1998 alone, none of that money ever went to indigenous tribes or to the people who originated the practice of using compound from the Pacific or Western yew as a treatment for cancer. The final medicinal practice that I want to talk about is a medical device. Before European contact, American Indians used syringes and needles to inject medicine into wounds to clean or irrigate them. These needles were made of hollowed out bird bone that were meticulously crafted by hand. The syringes were kind of like animal bladders that they would fill with air and then squeeze and pipette into the area that they were trying to irrigate. However, even though this very advanced technology was being used for hundreds of years, the credit for the first person to invent the hypodermic needle goes to Alexander Wood, who did make the first steel version of the hypodermic needle, but not the first version of the hypodermic needle. Even with this long history of pharmaceuticals and medicinal practices, according to the Association of American Medical Colleges, only 0.3% of physicians are Indigenous Americans, and even less are involved in pharmaceutical research. According to Redevers and Blondin, there has been some effort made to better accommodate Indigenous ways of knowing and healing in healthcare settings. However, in Indigenous societies across Canada and the US, knowledge keepers such as elders are the primary source of expertise on traditional medicine and healing. This makes it particularly difficult, and I say that with a grain of salt, for allopathic medicine and Indigenous practices to meet and collaborate, because allopathic medicine traditionally uses written ways of disseminating information, whereas Indigenous elders use oral communication as their way of distributing knowledge. Because of this difference, allopathic medicine has a hard time collaborating with Indigenous healers. With that, even though there is an abundance of evidence to suggest that Indigenous people have been using modern allopathic techniques for hundreds of years, there is little acknowledgement of the Indigenous contributions to allopathic medicine. So, despite some progress on global research into herbal remedies, many Indigenous medicine systems still are often given the back seat. They are not given the same amount of prestige or the same amount as coverage as other traditional forms of medicine, which leads to a lack of knowledge, a lack of awareness, and further contributes to stereotyping, xenophobia, and ignorance surrounding traditional Indigenous healing practices.